Battlefield 2042 hit a pretty impressive player count during the free week event. At over 100,000 concurrent players, it has introduced so many new faces to the franchise and has continued to hold these numbers after the fact. And to make it better, this is just on Steam. There's still people playing on Xbox, Game Pass, PlayStation, and EA, so really that number is larger. Whether you are brand new to Battlefield, an OG that just hasn't played in a while, or you're an avid player right now, there are some basic gameplay techniques that seem to completely bypass some players, and I want to discuss those. And hopefully by the end of this video you will all have a better understanding of some Battlefield etiquette pain points and learn a few tips that help you and your team stay cool on the battlefield. Vehicles in Battlefield 2042 are a very large mechanic in the game. They are critical on some maps to even stand a chance at winning, and unfortunately, there are some individuals who think that important vehicles like the Condor or others are just a point A to B and then eject shuttle. This wastes it for the whole team, or worse yet, leaves it up for grabs for the enemy team. This is such a large no-no and creates such a disadvantage for your team. Let's take for example Breakthrough on any map. Most maps in Battlefield and Breakthrough have a heavy defensive side advantage just due to the way that they are laid out. So, what happens? Well, DICE gives the attacking team a vehicle or two to even out the playing field. So if you have a helicopter as an attacker, then fly it to the top of Reclaimed just to jump out and forget about it, then you have essentially just given the defending side a free vehicle that they would have no way of getting any other way. And assuming someone with god tier pilot skills takes that from you, then you have potentially lost the game for your team. So, how do we avoid this? There's a couple points to talk about here. First off, flying in Battlefield is just a hard skill on its own, and there's no shame in accepting that. The thing we want to avoid here is seeing a jet fly up and then immediately crash to the ground within the first 15 seconds just because you didn't know what you were doing. If you've never flown a vehicle before, then the first time you do shouldn't be in a real match with real players. Thankfully, 2042 has an environment perfect for practicing. Just go into Portal, grab yourself a plane, and do a few laps around the block. Play against some AI, and when you can fly for 5 minutes without crashing or being blown up, then come out to play. Second, the phrase I started this section with: to die with your ride. If you're in any vehicle, flying or otherwise, and you're close to blowing up, don't leave it. You need to make sure that the vehicle actually blows up. If you bounce from the thing early, your vehicle no longer shows up as red, and sometimes enemies will stop destroying it. Then they run up, repair it, and have a free vehicle. So seriously, if you're part of the crew, then you're part of the ship, and if the ship goes down, then go down with it. And lastly on this point, just don't be a dick. Planes, tanks, and other large vehicles are not used to get from one side of the map to the other and then bounce from them. Use things like four-wheelers or UTVs, and even now, the new Pontoc. Stop being a passenger princess in a tank. This one is huge. Tank fights are a battle of attrition, so that means that there isn't any room for you to sit in the gunner's chair with your girly pop drink, cake pop, and tuning the radio to a station no one else in the tank enjoys. Typically, if you get shot first by another tank, you will die first. This is because tanks are very evenly matched. They also are very slow moving and have a slow rate of fire, so there's not much you can do in a tank versus tank matchup to get an advantage on your own. The only real thing that can help is if another player shoots the enemy tank with explosives, or if an engineer is healing your tank excessively. So because of this, if you're in a tank as a passenger, don't be a princess. Help the tank out. Get out if you have to and shoot the other tank. Kill your own tank, or make sure you're killing other players around your tank. It's super important that in a tank fight, you and your team create as many possibilities for an advantage as possible. And as a bonus point to this, if you're manning the MG on a tank, do not for any reason shoot an enemy tank that your tank isn't aware of. All this does is give your position away and gives the enemy a very large advantage in shooting you first. And like I said earlier, that essentially means you're not going to win that fight. What you should do instead is ping the enemy tank. If the driver doesn't feel like fighting that tank, then you aren't going to fight it. Even if it's the wrong decision, it just is what it is. You're not in the driver's seat, so you're not going to change anything.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Reviving is also another key concept in Battlefield, and it's really important that I mention it here. We all know that most game modes work off tickets in Battlefield, and I'm sure we all know that tickets can get reduced by either controlling points or killing enemies. But something I don't think some people know is that reviving killed players prevents that reduction of a ticket. So for example, you could die 10 times, but if you were revived 9 of those times, then you would only lose the team 1 ticket. And that's huge. You can make a game of Breakthrough a whole lot longer by reviving everyone, and you can win a match of Conquest by just controlling 1 point and never letting your team respawn. So to all my medics out there, if you see someone down, make your best effort to revive them. It's super important and is another mechanic in the game that moves matches in a certain direction. Now, with that said, there is also a responsibility on you as the one being revived. If you get killed, you can see who killed you, and obviously it's good to get revived, but only if the coast is clear. Your team isn't going to know if it's clear unless they saw who killed you, or if you ping them that you're safe to be revived. So if the person who just killed you is still close by, don't call for a res. Instead, ping the person who just killed you so that you let anyone know. Then, let your team kill them. If they do, then call for a res. If they don't, then respawn. You see, people who have played for a while pick up on the fact that people are rather dumb when it comes to reviving. So if they've killed a few people in an area that they know is congested, they will usually wait for the bad revives and get an extra kill or two. This also allows for them to chain kills. For example, let's say someone is beaming with an LMG. If people just line up and run towards that person, then everyone is just going to get killed one after another. So stop jumping on dead bodies as soon as they die. And one last thing about reviving. Don't Rambo revive. You don't know what that is? Well, let me explain. A Rambo revive is a revive that is attempted and usually failed when the person who is down is in a spot where if you were to stand in it, you would likely die very quickly. For example, on the new map Redacted, if someone is knocked down on the stairs that lead to Zone B, it would be very ignorant to attempt to revive that person as it's a very high congestion area. There's typically a lot of grenades or people hard scoping waiting for you to walk into their sights. It is honorable of you and can lead to a lot of super cool clips, but the only time a Rambo revive makes sense is if you're equipped to do it. A perfect kit for doing this would be a smoke grenade and then maybe Irish's trophy system and his barricade. But Irish doesn't carry a defibrillator, so really, unless you have a skilled team who can go in together, then honestly, the one dude who ran out too far and got killed is not worth you getting killed as well trying to revive him. So unless you're just a god tier Battlefield player, just let them be, and to the player who got killed, just understand that if you don't get revived, it's because you're in a sticky situation. Pings are a super useful and essential part of Battlefield, but they can easily be abused and cause a lot of frustration. The point I want to make here isn't very complicated, just don't spam pings. It's loud, annoying, and doesn't help your team at all. Ping one time, and then if that person moved a considerable distance since your last ping, then you can ping him again. But at the same time, don't just ping everything you see. If you think someone is in a spot that people don't know about, then ping it. If you die from someone hiding, ping it. If someone is flanking your group and you're the first one to die, ping it. I can't tell you how many times someone will die and then ping someone who is right in front of the team in plain sight, or someone at the front of the group pinging 10 enemies that are right in front of us. We know they're there. All you're doing is adding distractions. Add 5 more people in the mix and you can't even hear yourself think. It's just a sea of pings disorienting you to the absolute maximum. Probably the most important in all of Battlefield history is to play the fucking objective. In Battlefield, it is extremely difficult for one person to carry the full game. And so that means that getting everyone to play the objective is critical if you want to win. There's nothing worse than getting in a match of Rush and losing, then checking out the scoreboard and only seeing one person planting or defusing, that one person being you. Or better yet, playing Breakthrough and seeing people camping just outside of a zone's borders. Like, just move 2 feet to the left and get in the zone. Battlefield is a game where everyone has to help everyone capture objectives. As a matter of fact, you are more of a liability to the team if you're playing as a solo Rambo who's just out looking to get the most kills, because you're likely dying a lot and not near anyone who can revive you, all while really not providing much value to the overall team. If you want to play solo, then do so while being helpful. For example, try flanking the enemy. You can get the most kills in the game while playing the objective and shooting people in the back. Or if you're a solo sniper who's really just the 12th sniper on a hill counter-sniping against 2 other enemy snipers, just realize that there's not really any benefit to you being there. Get a rifle and capture an objective. Or better yet, if you like to stay far away, get a battle rifle and camp just a bit closer to the objective, killing enemies who are closer to that objective. This lightens the load for players up front. And vehicle drivers, if you're driving something like the Condor or a helicopter, let me tell you a secret. You are a moving spawn beacon. While killing air units and some ground units is a primary objective, being positioned in a way that allows people to spawn closer to the fight should be your very close second. Here's a bonus secret. You can even drop players behind enemy lines to flank the other team. Some of the fastest wins I've ever witnessed on Rush or Breakthrough have been because of this. Making the enemy team fight on 2 fronts destroys them and allows your team to make a very hard push that the enemy team can't come back from. Now, the last thing I want to say is that all these tips can help you gain more game sense and make you less of a nuisance to your team. However, being a nuisance to your enemy is a tactic I would encourage. I recently made this video here that can help you achieve that, and that's the tips for this video. If you know anyone who makes these mistakes every time they play, then send this video their way. And as always, like the video if you liked it, don't if you didn't, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks.